Good morning or good afternoon, dependent on where you are in the world. Welcome, and thank you for joining us today for our webinar, How to Build an Employer Brand from Scratch. My name is Nina. I'm an Associate Marketing Manager over at Glassdoor, and I will be your moderator for the day. All right, so just a couple of webinar tips for attendees before we get started. Your audio is streaming over the web, so please make sure that your speakers are turned on and turned up so that you're able to hear all of the wonderful information that we will be sharing with you today. All lines will be muted to avoid background noise, but you can ask questions at any time by typing them into the Q&A tab in the lower left corner of your window. We will be addressing all Q&A from the audience at the end of the presentation, but if one of our speakers says something amazing and you can't wait to ask for a question, feel free to just shoot that through in that chat whenever you have it. For all you social butterflies out there, I'd like to invite you to join the conversation with us socially for the next hour using the hashtag GDChat, as we will be live tweeting throughout the webinar. Our handle is GD4Employers, that's GDFOR Employers, and you'll see all speaker handles on the next slide as well. Now I'd like to introduce our amazing speakers for the day. First, we're joined by Michael Smith, who is the Senior Manager of Recruitment Marketing at Walmart. Hi, Michael. How are you today?
Hi, I'm good. And looking at this slide, I noticed, and Lisa brought this up yesterday too, we're all standing in front of a brick background. So I think that kind of makes us the basic white girls presenting today, which is pretty cool. But I'm really excited to be here. I've worked in recruitment marketing at Walmart for 3 years, all things careers websites, social media, and all the print and digital advertising. So I'm super excited to be presenting with you guys today.
Thanks so much for joining us, Michael. Next we have Stacy Zapar, who's the founder at Tenfold. Hi, Stacy.
Hi, guys. How are ya? I am Stacy Zapar. I'm the founder of Tenfold. As you just mentioned, I run a recruiting consultancy that focuses on sourcing strategies, employer branding strategies, other recruiting optimization, do consulting, training, speaking, all sorts of good stuff. So work with some great clients, and I'm excited to be here and talk about EB. This is one of my favorite topics, so thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. We're excited to have you. And then we have our very own Lisa Holden, who is the Employer Communications Manager here at Glassdoor. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Nina, and thank you to both of my co-presenters on the line today. My name is Lisa, and I work on the Corporate Affairs, Corporate Communications team here at Glassdoor, focusing specifically on the employer side of the house. So it's my job to make sure that employers and folks like you understand exactly how to use Glassdoor to boost your employer brand and take advantage of all of our great features to make your employer brand the best that it can be, both for your employees, candidates, and any other stakeholders who are interested in your organization. I've been with the company for going on 5 years now, so if you have questions about Glassdoor, the logistics, and how we work, I'm happy to answer those. But the experts on the call today really are Stacy and Michael, who are going to walk you through really how to build your employer brand from scratch. So with that, we will go ahead and get started. Quickly on our agenda today, I'm going to walk you through what an employer brand is and what our perspective is on that and some research that we've discovered here at Glassdoor. And then we're going to talk about why it matters and some economic research there. Stacy will give you steps to building your employer brand and amplifying that brand message. And then Michael will walk you through a real example of how to do this and how he has accomplished it at Walmart. And we'll finish with some key takeaways, and then we'll hopefully leave time for your questions. So let's dive right in. What is an employer brand, and what do I mean when I say that? So the first part of an employer brand that I want to go over is your reputation. And I love this quote from Jeff Bezos, the founder and CEO at Amazon, who said, "Your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room." And that's always a kind of scary thing, right? And I think that's why we're all here on the line today, to talk about how do you manage something that's happening when you're not in the room. So really the best way to think about this is that your employer brand is your reputation, and that is made up of things like your company culture, your mission, your company values, and your people are really an important part of that conversation, and they are kind of part of it that you can't control and you shouldn't try to control, but they have a lot of power and a lot of voice in this conversation, so you should make sure that you are doing everything you can to foster a unique culture, a positive culture, and do anything you can to support that. And like I said, Stacy and Michael are the experts here, and they'll get into what we mean on that. So when you think about developing an effective employer brand, it's really the foundation of an effective recruitment strategy. And I think we can all agree that when you have a powerful and quality employer brand, that's how you bring in quality candidates. And that's why we're on the line today. So what I want you to think about today as we're going through this is think about the fact that part of your employer brand is about the sentiment of potential applicants, current applicants, and of course your current and former employees. But that's not the whole picture. It's important to add your perspective from the employer side of things and also measure progress over time when it comes to your employer brand. So pay attention to what's happening, what other people are saying, make sure you're joining that conversation, and make sure that you're consistently monitoring it. The next part of your employer brand comes down to culture. And it's important to focus on your people, your work environment, and the various workplace factors that make up that environment. So things like work-life balance, opportunities for growth and learning, etc. And according to a 2016 Human Capital Trends report by our friend Josh Burson, culture has become one of the most important business topics of 2016. And I mean, think about what that means. It means that CEOs, HR leaders, so all of our bosses are recognizing that culture drives people's behavior, it drives their innovation and customer service. And 82% of leaders believe company culture gives them a competitive advantage. And I'll get into a little bit more research that really proves that that actually is the case. Your culture can really affect your company's bottom line, and I'll get into what I mean by that. Another huge part of this is really your mission and your values. And those should empower your employees, not only job seekers who are looking at your company, but this is really what's driving your employees to come to work and really want to do a good job every day. Do they feel like the mission resonates with them? Do they know what the mission is? Can they recite it? And then, do the company values map back to that mission in order to empower people to be successful, feel motivated, feel like they can support one another and have a collaborative culture where they're all kind of climbing the same mountain and pushing towards the same key point. And that's why your mission and your values are so important. And next are your people. A company called Edelman does this trust barometer every year where they basically ask consumers what their opinions are of organizations, how much they trust different companies selling different goods and services. And when they ask about employers from an employer perspective, they find that employees are 3 times more credible than the CEO of an organization when you're talking about things like working conditions. And that really makes sense. That resonates, right? When you're picking a restaurant or buying something on Amazon, you want to hear from the people who have eaten at that restaurant, the people who have bought that product, because those are the shoes you're in, and that really rings true when you think about your employer brand. So your employees have this incredibly powerful voice in this conversation, and it's your job to make sure that they feel empowered to share. So moving on to why employer branding matters. That's kind of what it is and why it's important. But why does this matter for the purposes of your organization? And how can you prove that it matters to your leaders as you're fighting for things like more budget and resources to really focus on this? So in today's recruiting market, we know that it's candidate-driven. Candidates have a lot of power in today's hiring market, and so a positive and well-defined employer brand is essential to attracting and retaining that top talent. And we've done some Glassdoor research on this, and we found that 74% of active job seekers are likely to apply to a job if the employer actively manages its employer brand. And that's because, like I mentioned, employee voice is important, but your employer voice is equally important in this conversation. And potential candidates want to hear from you and feel like you're part of the conversations that are happening about your organization. It makes you look like you're on the ball. You know what I mean? So strengthening your employer brand has been a top priority for some of the most effective hiring organizations, and this is for good reason. I mean, not only are these organizations a step ahead of their competition when it comes to attracting talent, but they tend to be ahead in other key areas as well. So I want to point you to some third-party research that basically, this is a study developed by some folks at a university in Spain that concludes that workers that view online reviews by employees as a reliable source of information, they form opinions and intentions to apply for jobs based on those reviews. So this is a study that Glassdoor had nothing to do with, but they came to us and said, hey, we're going to do this and we'll share the results with you. And we said, great, go for it. And that was the extent of our influence here. And basically, they showed people Glassdoor reviews, and they asked them how likely they were to apply to various jobs and companies. And what they found is really that strong employer brands speak for themselves. People are more likely to apply at organizations that have positive reviews. And that might feel like a no-brainer for some of the more advanced experts on the line. But for some people, I mean, this is a concept that needs more attention, needs to be taken more seriously. And you're on the line because you understand that, and it's your job to explain that to others at your organization. And so you can use studies like this to really prove that point. So feel free to take screenshots along the way, and these slides will be available after the presentation. A recording will be available as well. So with that, I'd like to hand things off to Stacy to give us some first steps in building a quality employer brand.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that, Lisa. Hi guys, we're going to talk a little bit about building your employer brand roadmap. Obviously, you know, everybody actually already has an employer brand, whether you recognize it or not or know what that is. Everybody already has one. So we're not actually building your employer brand per se. We're more building out kind of how we want to shape it. How do we want to evangelize it? What do we want to talk about? How do we want to educate potential candidates, future employees, et cetera? So I saw this quote recently. Catherine Minshew said this on stage at a conference recently, and it really struck me. Overall branding is a promise to your customers, whereas employer branding is a promise to your current and future employees. So they really are two sides of the same coin, and it really is about evangelizing kind of what those promises are and who you are and kind of what's in it for the employees, et cetera. So let's kind of explore that, kind of go a little deeper there. Great employer branding peels back the curtains. That's all it does. That's why Glassdoor is called Glassdoor, right? You can see through the glass and see what's happening inside the company. Great employer branding does that. It allows people to see what it's really like to work inside your company. What's the culture? What are the people like? What's the office environment? What's the work that people are doing? What are the values? What's in it for them? That EVP, et cetera. So really great employer branding isn't just talking about how great of a company you are. Really great employer branding gives a really authentic, transparent look into what it's really like, because I just commented on something on LinkedIn yesterday, I believe. You know, one person's worst company ever is another person's dream employer. Really, different people are going to thrive in different environments. So the more real you are about your company, the more likely you are to attract the people who are going to really thrive in your environment. So really, it's a matter of telling your story, telling your company's story. And this isn't a fictitious story. I don't mean to imply that in any way. But you need to figure out what you're going to talk about. You need to figure out what it is that you can share with the outside world to help them be able to make more educated decisions about whether this is the right place for them. So where do you start? The very first step is building that employer brand roadmap. You need to have a plan. I've said this a few times in the past. You know, I used to hate it growing up. I'd have this big science fair project, and it was due in 4 or 6 weeks, and my dad would say, you know, you gotta plan to work and work the plan. And I would always roll my eyes, or he'd talk about eating the elephant one bite at a time. And of course, I'd wait till the night before and try to whip up something, but we won't talk about that. Really good employer brand strategies are well thought out and well planned out. And sorry, I'm getting a little error message on the app, so let me know if you guys aren't seeing my slides, and I'll pass the controls on to somebody else. But the point is really come up with a plan, and I'm going to give you 10 steps right now that are going to help you break down this big effort into a step-by-step process that will enable you to kind of roll this out in a kind of thoughtful, intentional, strategic manner. All right, so I am now on the number 1 slide. Hopefully you guys are all seeing that. The first step, of course, is to define your recruiting challenges. What is so hard about your recruiting? Oh, she took over control, so I will let you drive now, Nina. But you need to figure out what are your problems from a business perspective. What are the things that aren't working? Is it time to fill? Is it quantity of applicants, quality of applicants? Do you need more referrals? Is it cost per hire? Is it, a lack of brand awareness because you're a B2B or a startup? There are a number of different recruiting challenges that are unique to your organization, and you need to understand what those are, and then tie your employer branding goals to those specific recruiting challenges. I do see a lot of companies out there and I talk to people that are, we should be on the number 1 slide, Miss Nina, if that's okay, the one right after that. I see a number of companies that are unfortunately kind of just doing employer branding because they think they're supposed to, and they reach out to me and they're like, we should be doing this, right? And it's really important to tie those back to your recruiting challenges and whatever it is that you hope to solve. So number 2, sorry, I might have to pull up my own slides here. Michael's okay, sorry guys. The number 2 step is, is to establish benchmarks. Hopefully you guys are all seeing a little picture of a measuring tape here. Tell me what you measure, and that will tell me what you care about. If you're not being data-driven in your decisions and you're just going by gut instinct, you're not really being smart with your time, effort, resources. Again, it's more of that branding for branding's sake that we want to avoid. We really want to say, where are we today? Where do we hope to be? Where's our competition? Screenshot things, take a moment in time, and then really track things as you go. And you can measure, you can adjust, you can kind of iterate along the way as you're going, and you can see what's working, you can see what's not, you can see what areas are being positively impacted by your employer brand efforts and which ones maybe aren't being as impacted, and you can change up your plan a little bit. The number 3 step is to establish your team. Who are your stakeholders? Who are the project team members? Who are the people that you need to report up this information to? Who are your brand ambassadors across the organization, the people that really know the culture, that live the culture, that are naturally social, whatever it is. So really kind of do that early in the process. I find that if you kind of work on your employer brand strategy and then toward the end of the process say, hey, FYI, key stakeholders and team members, this is what you're going to do, or this is what the plan is, you tend to get less buy-in, you tend to get less support, less involvement. So involving everybody early and having everyone feel like they were part of this effort really does lead to more adoption and more participation and more support along the way. Partner with your marketing team, absolutely. It is all one brand, right? Consumer brand, employer brand, they're 2 sides of the same coin, but it is all one good brand, or one brand rather. I've seen companies with really strong consumer brands that hit some potholes in the road when it comes to employer brand, and their consumer brand can carry them, and vice versa. I've seen companies that have a really good consumer brand but get dinged from an employer brand perspective. There's some companies in the headlines lately that you may have heard about. I won't name names, but absolutely there's some backlash happening there. So really, if you can work with your marketing team, there's a real advantage to making sure that it's that one cohesive brand. Besides, this is a little tidbit here, the marketing team has bigger budgets. They have a lot of tools. They have a lot of resources. They have a lot of know-how. So tapping into that team and really partnering with them early is going to really give you a boost. You're not going to be a kind of a sideshow at the circus. You're going to be part of that kind of main stage, and that's really important. Number 5, listen to your employees. You can do employee surveys. You can set up SWAT teams. You can interview. You can, of course, look at Glassdoor reviews. Go around and really listen to your employees. What do they like? What's maybe a challenge? What's in it for them? Really hearing from your employees is going to help you understand your culture, understand why people choose to work at your company, because every day people make a choice to stay or to go. They choose to stay. So really listen to your employees. It's amazing what you'll learn. And I often do just random interviews around the company and just talk to people, because I don't want to just hear from the cheerleaders or the naysayers. I want to really get a snapshot from across the organization. Number 6, You want to audit your existing assets. What do you already have? Is there already a folder that exists with tons of great photos that people have been taking candidly around the organization or at events within the organization? Is there already a blog? Maybe your engineering team keeps a blog and they really geek out with the tech. That would be something great for you to share from an employer brand perspective to your tech audience, because that's what they want to consume. So really take a look at all the assets that might be out there. You don't need to recreate every bit of content from scratch and new. There's often a lot out there that you can repurpose, reuse, so that you're not constantly having to come up with new stuff. Your core values and your EVP. If you haven't at least defined one or the other or both, I definitely think it'd be a good idea to do that early in the process. What are the values that we hold? What are our mission? What's our mission? I read a really great article by Lars Schmidt recently, I think it was Fast Company, where he said, this whole idea of culture fit is sort of passé. Now it's all about values fit. Do people really fit our values? And that's really the core underneath it all, and I think that's genius. So definitely make sure that you set up a SWAT team. You don't need to pay some big agency, 6 figures to do your EVP. Talk to your employees and really talk to your leadership, and the story will start to come together. Develop your personas. We talk about personas in sourcing a lot. However, it's important to talk about personas from a recruitment marketing perspective as well. If you know your audience, then you can speak to them better. Who are you trying to target? Which group are you trying to activate from a candidate perspective and drive awareness and drive conversion? Awareness means they've heard of your company. Conversion means they're actually going out there and applying or trying to if there's an open position, et cetera. So if you know your audience and you're targeting millennials, or you're targeting high volume folks, or if you're targeting kind of recent grads, or you're targeting techies or salespeople, whatever it is, know what motivates them, know what is interesting to them, know what type of content that they want to hear about so that you can deliver that content, so you're not just talking about what's interesting to you or what's interesting to the recruiting team. Really make sure that you're speaking to your audience, and Michael's going to talk about this in a second. He's got some really cool examples of this. So develop your narrative and content strategy. What are we going to talk about, for goodness sake, right? We can't just, every day there's more stuff we need to be sharing. Well, what is that? You can develop what's called pillars of content. That sounds, like, what's that? But really, pillars of content are just sort of buckets or categories of things that you're going to consistently talk about. Really develop your strategy. Stay on message. Stay on brand. Come up with what it is that you want to talk about based on those personas and those recruiting challenges and the goals of your employer brand program. And when you kind of stay on track, it's a lot easier. You can do all sorts of fun things that are campaign driven. You can have this push that's special and has a special branded hashtag. There's all sorts of stuff you can do. We're going to talk a little bit about this one in the second section, so stay tuned for more on the narrative and content strategy. Last but not least, when it comes to kind of building out your roadmap, look at your tools. Look at the technologies that are out there. Look at the training needs of your team. There are really great tools out there, many of which are free. Some of them are paid, depending on your budget, depending on your resources, the size of your team, who you've activated to be part of it. Sometimes a simple tweak from a tool is going to make things so much better. And these tools are often going to help you be more data-driven and measure the impact and measure the results. Again, training too, same thing. Obviously I believe in training. That's a big part of what I live and breathe every day. But I've seen companies that have great programs, but none of their team is kind of aware of what's going on or how to use the tools or what the message is going to be. I'm on slide 10, but I don't know if you guys are, so stay tuned. It's coming, it sounds like. Long story short, if you are not getting your team involved and at least aware and kind of trained up on what the needs are, then you're going to definitely not be as impactful as you could be. All right, we're on a transition slide called Building a Strong Authentic Narrative. Authentic, yes, it's employer brand buzzword bingo, but it fits the bill. Authentic is where we want to be. So in my opinion, employee storytelling is where it's at. You've got to get your employees out there telling their stories. It's not just about the brand saying, look what a great place we are. You really need to get your employees out there telling their perspectives, their day-to-day, the work that they're working, the impact that they're having, et cetera. So that employee storytelling is really key. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that and some why. Here's a few stats. The next slide says employee storytelling. And there's a few stats on there. Hopefully you guys can see it. But you know, your company page might have X number of followers on different social channels, but when your employees share that out, it has so much more possibility for going viral. So it's 571% more reach, as a matter of fact. Hopefully you guys are all seeing this. I apologize. There's always a random technical difficulty that makes things fun, but we're rolling with it. And you guys will all get a copy of this deck at the end as well. 90% of potential candidates trust recommendations from people that they know, where only 33% trust those brand messages. So again, it's all about people, family, friends, actual employees. It's going to come through as more authentic and more believable than just because a brand says something about themselves. All right, let's see. Again, this is a really important statistic that really hit home for me. Employees, candidates and consumers are 3 times more likely to believe employees than CEOs when it comes to the work culture. 3 times, so that's huge. And then again, the employees, as we talked about, they have a much bigger, 10 times the social following that your company has when you factor in all of the employees and all of their followers, and there's so much more reach to be had there. I call that kind of branding in your backyard, because if your employee shares something, it gets shared to the people that they know. And who do financial analysts know? Other financial analysts. Who do software engineers know? They know other software engineers. So every time your employees share it, it's going out to the people that they know in this world, that they've worked with in the past, and it drives employee referrals that way. So it's pretty cool. All right. Next, let's talk about video. This is something that I think is getting more utilized all the time. We're seeing video popping up on social all over the place. But video now, by 2019, they say that video is going to account for 80% of all the online consumer internet traffic. And in 2015, adults spent an average of 1 hour and 16 minutes a day consuming digital video. It's crazy. So you may not have a fancy digital video team. Use your iPhone, or take a longer piece of video and then break it up into short snippets. Play with video. The more, even if it's not fancy and slick, the more kind of real it is, the greater chance that it's going to be more believable anyway. And millennials tend to appreciate shorter term video, shorter snippets, and it looks less overly produced, if you will. Mobile is also a big part of it. This is a little bit of a shocking thing, but 87% of job seekers would apply for jobs via mobile if they could. Yet 90% of all the Fortune 500 companies' careers pages do not have a mobile apply option still. This is a definite disconnect. And why do you think people are using mobile to search for jobs? I know that you guys can't answer that necessarily, but that's because we're on a webinar, of course. But the answer is because they're at work and they may not want to use their work computer to search for jobs, so they're on their phone. So it's really important that your website is mobile responsive, that it's optimized, that there's a mobile apply. You don't want to have people pinching and zooming on their phone as part of this process. So what are we going to talk about? We talked a little bit about the content strategy. This is really important. Okay, so the great stories to share, the work that's being done, this is huge. People want to build their resumes. So the work that's being done, your culture, screenshot this if you want to, but the great stories to share are going to be that your impact and higher purpose, pictures of the office environment, what does it look like, there's that EVP and core values that we talked about, spotlight your employees, meet the team, anything that's a unique perk or a unique benefit, events, millennials care about social causes, the impact you're having on the world, etc. So these are all great things that you can weave into your narrative and your content strategy. All right, next. And my computer is not caught up, so I apologize. All right, Miss Nita, can you hit the next slide for me?
We're on amplifying your brand messaging right now.
Okay, cool. Okay, great. I'm going to just get off this because mine is not showing. It's so crazy. Okay, pulling it up now. All right, amplifying your brand strategy. So, of course, we want to get the word out there. How do we get the word out there of what we're going to be sharing? And, sorry, 10 more seconds. All right, so we're at recruitment marketing. These are all the different ways that we can get our message out there. You have a number of methods to choose from. You don't have to do all of these, but this is just a nice little quote that kind of talks about all the different ways. And Michael's going to talk a little bit about Career Site in a bit, so as well as some of these other things that they're doing. So I'm going to very quickly breeze through these. You're going to have these slides. Social channels, of course, that's a big part of it. Social recruiting, social branding through social, you've heard a lot about it. I'm not going to go into great detail there. That's an obvious one, so I start there. Next is that real raw-time sharing. We're seeing Snapchat and Instagram and Facebook, and stories are popping up everywhere. Keep it raw, keep it real. Get your employees sharing real life. It's not sanitized. It's truly authentic. If there's ads and sponsored posts, if you have a little budget, you're going to be able to target people that have visited your site, maybe not applied. Of course, there's Glassdoor and reputation management. This is huge. You've got to own your brand. You've got to respond to feedback. As we mentioned in some of those statistics, it's really important to own the brand, share that content out there, respond to reviews, encourage your employees to participate and share their feedback so that you're attracting the right people. I have one client that has on this transparency in action. You're going to see some red ribbons here on your screen. Own your culture. I have one client that doesn't have the best score on Glassdoor, but they point every single potential employee to the website because they feel it is absolutely accurate about the culture that they have. Some of the pros, some of the cons, they're really keeping it real. You have to be 100% go, go, go. You've got to be an A player. You've got to always be bringing your A game, or else you may not have a job for very long. And they push that out there. They don't want people to waste their time if they're not going to be A players. So own the brand that you have, even if it's not perfect and sterling and 100% positive all the time. Own it, and that's okay. You can, of course, do blogging and content marketing, start a blog, get your employees out there, feature them, etc. These are obvious. You want to make sure your careers page is engaging. You want to have Q&A with your employees, meet the team, see the people on the team before you even apply. I saw a really great one on this one website recently where they kind of do a little meet the team and they profile employees and they have some little fun facts. I think this is great. Transparency in action. When I worked with Zappos, we put all of the photos and the names of all the recruiters and what team they recruited for and all their social profiles. True transparency in action. It was great. I think this is a standard that not every company can necessarily kind of go with, but if you can pull it off, I think it's wonderful. There's landing pages nowadays, branded job postings. You can track stuff. You can see who's visited. You can incorporate video. You can incorporate blog posts, photos. Really let people see and meet the team before they even apply. This is a high standard, and Michael's going to talk about it. Newsletters, email campaigns. Keep nurturing those leads. Get the emails from your CRM or your ATS and keep talking to your employees, or your candidates rather, and be kind of front of mind so that they're able to keep you in mind when it is time to make a move, or maybe you'll spark them to have a little interest when they weren't necessarily thinking of making a move. Texting is huge. 90% of all texts are read within the first, or 99% of most texts are read within the first 90 seconds or something. I read this stat this week. It's an incredible number. Texting works. Make sure that people are okay with it before you don't just opt them in. But if they're okay with it, text them. Try this. This is absolutely an effective means of keeping in touch with candidates. Live events, host meetups, host mixers, host hackathons. Tell your software engineers, bring a friend. We're going to have a happy hour after work. It's a great way to kind of meet, mix, and mingle and get people to see your environment, meet the team. Absolutely. We can be social in real life. We don't have to just do everything online. So that's kind of my thoughts there. I'm going to pass it over to Michael. So he has about 30 minutes now to kind of tell his story and how they've done a lot of these things. So thanks for letting me share, guys.
Awesome. So you all know that Stacy's a rock star. She's actually my idol when it comes to employment brand. So I really do feel
I had no idea.
Hashtag blessed to continue the theme to share stage with you. I appreciate that from you, Stacy, and Glassdoor for setting this up. The great thing about Stacy's presentation is that it works, right? I am 100% convinced that if you follow the steps with discipline, not everything, but those core items that you can do really well, you're going to be successful. I really wish that I had her deck when I started because, frankly, it would have saved me a lot of heartache. I had to learn some things the hard way. So what I'm going to do is just share some of Walmart's story of how we addressed some of those points along the way in hopes that it'll help maybe inspire you on your particular employment brand journey. So the first thing, Walmart is definitely unique. It has challenges. You might think we're a big company with a lot of resources, But the truth is that everyone has some absurd challenges that will trip you up if you don't get on top of them. When we answer these questions, what is our brand? Our brand is essentially your last experience in one of our stores. It could have been amazing. It may have been less than amazing. Most people have a strong opinion about Walmart that's more based on our retail stores than our corporate environment or the company as a whole. From an objective perspective, our challenge is better quality. We actually have more applicants than we need for most of our requisitions. So how do we get better candidates? From a demographic perspective, our SVP used to joke that the only people we don't hire are neurosurgeons and astronauts. We have jewelers. We have pilots. We've got a meteorologist on our team, for crying out loud. I mean, we hire everyone. So how do you be relevant to anyone if you're trying to reach everyone? That's a big deal. And then finally, we are everyday low cost. So I have a team right now of 4 people supporting 57 business divisions that could operate as their own businesses and 2.4 million associates worldwide. It's kind of a big challenge. So everyone has those. When we started looking at defining our challenges, it really wasn't about the traffic. 1.6 million unique visitors per month to our website. That's awesome, right? We should be getting amazing talent. And if you look at the candidate phases up there at the top, we've got people seeing advertising, they're doing organic search, they're getting to the website. So there you expect that they continue to explore, they evaluate our culture, they look at the job roles, they start to bond and potentially have an affinity for a particular job, at which point they may do more research, they may talk to a recruiter, and they may apply, and they're getting invested. If they're good candidates, they get an offer, and they get to weigh that against their other opportunities. That's the way we expect that phase to go. Well, what we saw is that most users are only looking at 2 pages per session on the website. So they're landing on our website, but they're immediately jumping to application, meaning they're not understanding our culture, they're not understanding the role, they're not fit for the job, and we're not hiring them. So that is a challenge that we have to address. In tying the goals, our employment brand goals, to the challenge, we wanted to make sure that it was not just the recruiting goals that we were looking at, but also the overall employer goals, employer challenges. So our mission is to save people money so that they can live better. And our job in recruitment marketing is to tie people's inherent skills and passions to that mission. So it was really important for us to communicate that early, that we were aligned all the way up the chain to the top of the enterprise, that we were all headed in the same direction for 2 reasons. One, we didn't want to get down the path and have our executive team say, hey, this doesn't seem aligned, it seems off. But secondly, we wanted to make sure that the messaging, the thought that was going into everything we did resonated with the overall goals of the company. So that was the first aha when we were tying our goals to challenges, to make sure they go all the way up the chain. Now, in thinking about the tactics that Stacy shared at the end of her presentations, if we've got 57 different business divisions with unique demographics, what are we going to do to be relevant to them? Well, of course, we're going to create 57 different social channels. We're going to create tailored content to each of those demographics, and we're really going to speak to our audience, right? Well, no, that's impossible. I'd love to do that, but with the resources that we have, we knew that that wasn't going to be feasible. So we had to apply the 80-20 rule here. 20% of your efforts drive 80% of your impact. So what were we going to do that was going to make the most impact on the greatest audience? Well, for us, that is our employer brand website, our careers website. It's open 24/7 globally, and it's often the first touch point that a person has with the company. So it was really important to be authentic and to communicate our culture quickly through the website. Now, there's a lot of tactics that you're potentially evaluating, and all of the ideas are good. So how do you decide on where you put in your focus? I recommend using this prioritization grid. It's very simple. On the x-axis or the y-axis, you've got the impact. The higher it is, the higher the impact. On your feasibility axis, the further to the right, the easier it is to do. So if it's easy to do and has a high impact, obviously that's a no-brainer, right? You're top right. You're going to do that for sure. But where you really want to focus on are those things that are a little bit more difficult to do but have a high impact, because those are going to be the differentiators from your competition. Now, the things that are easy to do but have less of an impact, your competitors have probably already done those. So those are utilities that may be table stakes to participate. Everything else is a waste of time. So I recommend taking your tactics, get the smart people in the room that are working on employment brand, put these on Post-it notes and start mapping them to this grid. And you may have to make some tough choices about where you're going to spend your time based on your resources. And don't boil the ocean. It's really easy to do, but when it comes to establishing your benchmark, there's tons of data points, and we use the standard ones, the cost per application, cost per hire. Actually, if you Google recruiting metrics ERE has a great article and a great PDF on explaining the metrics that you should be looking at. We decided as a team that 3 KPIs per tactic is what we were going to focus on, so that we would make sure and invest in efforts that were going to impact those few KPIs. Now, we track everything, and when I say everything, it's really everything. All of the page visits, the videos you start, the videos you finish, the search terms you use, everything. And the reason we do that is because once we hit our KPI goals for the initial launch of the website, we're going to look back and we're going to want that historical data. So it's important to capture as much as you can, but only focus on those things you're going to influence in the short term. So limit your KPIs to the resources that you have on your team. And I highly recommend using a visualization software. You can use the Domo, you can use Tableau. If you can't have a license for that, Excel will do. But creating these visualizations helps you take metrics and convert them into analytics. CEB did a study recently, and companies with good high data judgment, or companies that could turn metrics into action steps, had 24% better performance than those with low data judgment or low ability to do that. So it's really important to visualize this in a way that helps you understand how to implement action steps. Now, for the website, we only had 2 objectives. The first one was to improve brand consideration and opinion, and it was how much? 10 Net Promoter Score points by Q2. The second one, drive quality candidates down the application funnel. How much? 10% by Q4. If you don't have a how much and a by when, it's not an objective and it's a waste of time. So you've got to have those tied down, set challenging goals, and go after them. When it came to building the team and stakeholders, we had 100+, and that makes sense when you think about our 57 business units. And then you think about high-volume users like our recruiters, even our vendor partners, right? We've got the technology piece, and they have to integrate on the back end. And so by default, we have these stakeholders. In that kind of situation, I highly recommend something like Slack. Slack will allow you to put your sprint review decks up there. You can put polls. You can request feedback. All that information is stored in one place. You invite all the stakeholders to that location, and it's a central repository that eliminates thousands of unnecessary emails. So definitely look into that if you're doing a larger project. Now, it was important for us to have these stakeholders, but we also defined that only 7 representatives from these greater groups were able to influence the design. So that limited how many people were at the table. But we also were clear up front. This is the expectation for you. This is the timeline. This is the type of feedback we need from you. And that helped us really make sure that we were getting the right type of feedback and we weren't getting bogged down. It also helps grease the wheels. As Stacy said earlier, when you have that buy-in, people want to participate. They give you better content and better feedback. So when it came to partnering with marketing, Walmart's huge, right? 2.4 million associates, and just there's a real opportunity for silos. So what we found is it's not just marketing, but also our corporate affairs team. Our UX team is rolling out apps, and so we gave them our style guide, and they're utilizing that now to build out a look and feel that's consistent. We also have a lot of rogues within Walmart, people that set up their own channels. They're off-brand, and so it was really important for us to identify who's doing what, get them on the same page, so that we could be consistent across the board with our brand. The aha for listen to employees is that this is something that has to be done early and often, both employees and our candidates, getting feedback from them on how we can improve. Now, Sam Walton said that the secret of successful retailing is to give your customers what they want. For all of us, our customer is our candidate and our employee. So what does the customer want? Well, they want the best. Honestly, the last best experience that anyone has had anywhere becomes the minimum expectation for what they want everywhere. That sets the bar really high. So how do you address this when people are expecting consumer marketing to recruitment marketing to reflect consumer marketing, and we're really behind, really, right? Because it takes a much more sophisticated sell to get someone to change their life, potentially move to a new area, change their career, impact their family, than to try a new candy bar for $1. So we have a lot of work to do in being sophisticated in how we market to these individuals. Without the resources, though, the one thing you've got to do, if it has to be minimal, is that it's got to be delightful, right? You wouldn't in year one make a cake, and then in year two, let's develop the icing. In year three, let's make the decorative icing. No, we want cupcakes today because cupcakes are awesome, and we can do those with little effort. So make sure that you have something that is functional, but also has that emotional, delightful connection with your candidate today. From there, you can scale. Next year, you can do the birthday cake, and eventually you get to that awesome wedding cake. But give them something delightful today. So in auditing what we had and what we needed to do, we understood our challenge, right? We're getting people who are not understanding our brand, our culture, or the jobs. And when we did an audit of our website, we didn't have the assets there to really facilitate what we needed. And that is the intelligence, the understanding to either opt in or opt out based on your qualifications and skill sets. So our ugly baby was our website. Our job openings weren't easy to find. The user paths didn't make sense. They were disjointed. The employer plan was all over the place. It wasn't consistent. And the self-help tools were lacking. So FAQs weren't even asking the right questions. But most importantly, the site didn't reflect culture, which is our strongest value proposition. So in exploring our values and our value proposition, how we wanted to communicate this, what we can say about Walmart is that we are amazing problem solvers. There are brilliant people working on the toughest challenges in retailing on a global scale, a scope that no one else has than the Fortune 1. But the other part of that is the heart. We are very much passionate about sustainability, about women's empowerment, about charitable giving. We give $1 billion in cash and in-kind usually every year. So there's a lot of this heart behind what we're doing. And when you break down that Walmart, yes, you have this tradition, but you also have a modernity. We're using VR and AR, and what you're going to see come out in shopping space is going to blow your mind. We're local. Everywhere we are, we give to the community, but we're a global company with that huge opportunity. We're nice people, but we work really hard. There's a calling here. You should be fulfilled. We want to give you a lifelong career at Walmart, but if not, the skill sets that you learn here are going to be a calling card anywhere you go. And finally, we are a collective, but we celebrate individual successes. So these are the things that define our company. Bentonville's not flashy. Walmart's not flashy. We're not going to get you on awesome offices and probably your ideal city location. But we do have a lot to offer authentically about who we are as a company. Users want to be a part of something meaningful, and that's something that Walmart has to offer. So, personas. We have dozens, right? Because demographics span everything. And so what we had to do was really narrow this down to our user personas on our website. And one of those was the recruiter. So we're building these personas. Martin, let's say he's an 18-year-old retail candidate. We looked at what is their perception of Walmart, what are the key employment considerations, and we did some research on who this person was, and this is just a small piece of that. But from there, we started asking, what does Martin say? What does he do? What does he think? What does he feel? And we built this empathy map to really understand how that person relates to a career. From there, we break it into a journey. So we know that he's going to explore, he's going to evaluate, he's going to invest and weigh a job. What are the things he's thinking and feeling along that path? So again, get the smart people in the room. Start putting this stuff on Post-it notes. You built the empathy map. Now move the Post-its to the places and the phases where Justin's feeling what he's feeling. And with that, you have the opportunity to create a user journey. Now, this is a small piece of it. It's not the whole thing. But you can see here user actions based on where he is. If we can understand what he's thinking and doing in those steps, we can make sure and present that information at the right time. So the candidate journey becomes really important. I want to leave some time for questions, so I'm going to skip through this stuff really quickly. But I want to tell you, WalmartCareers.com relaunched just over a week ago on March 21st. I would encourage you to take a look, tell me what you think, tweet at me, let me know. I think we did a pretty good job at solving for these issues, emphasizing our brand, making sure that our culture shined, putting the candidate first, and guiding our candidates to success in the application process. Now, we still have work to do, but as a minimum delightful product, I think we've done quite well. It's clean, it's helpful, it's human. The job search is enhanced. We're going to continue to insert enhanced, but you got powerful filters and features to help see job previews. You also have more information that helps you understand a day in the life of a cashier or a stocker or those jobs. There's a lot of features about those that may not be obvious, and so we share those. And of course, it's all mobile responsive all the way through the apply flow, as Stacy said. That's table stakes or should be anyway. We're all behind, right? But should be table stakes in 2017. Everybody should be able to use their phones. So just a couple of metrics in 1 week, and this is early, but you'll see that the change has already been significant. Our page views per session have gone up 40%. Our average session duration has increased 19%, and the bounce rate has dropped 30%. So just looking at our employment brand, using a body of research to write the content in a way that's logical and takes the user down the path from homepage to company to department to team to role and into the application flow has made a significant difference. So I'm gonna step off now and hand this over to Lisa for key takeaways.
Thank you so much, Michael and Stacy. Wow, I feel like more of an expert in this now. So I'm going to take you through our key takeaways very quickly so we leave about 7 minutes here for questions. And so, you know, you've absorbed a lot of information today. And again, the slides and the recording will be available. But the things that we want to make sure that you take back with you and really understand are that if you're going to tackle your employer brand, prioritization is a huge first step. And the way to get started is to build that roadmap and really fill in the holes of what you need to be successful. So whether it's defining your mission or making sure that your values map back to that mission and making sure that that's communicated to your employees, or it's empowering your brand advocates, your employees to have their own voices, make sure that that is included in your roadmap and you're kind of selling that to your key stakeholders so that you have a cohesive program to move forward with. And finally, engaging employees to become brand ambassadors is part of the work here. You can do steps 1 and 2, but unless you're engaging your workforce, you're missing out on a major brand voice that is more trustworthy than even your CEO in telling your story. So with that, I will hand it to our lovely moderator, Nina, who has been collecting your questions, and she will just sort of popcorn us around and assign us out to answer them.
Perfect. Thank you, Lisa, and thank you both, Michael and Stacy, for sharing all that wonderful information. I know I was seriously taking notes on my end as well, so thank you. As Lisa mentioned, we will go into Q&A at this time, so if you have not asked your question yet, please do so now. And just to reiterate, for those of you that did ask, we will be sending out the slide deck and recording within 24 hours, so just be on the lookout for an email from me with that. Okay, so we have a ton of questions, so we'll do our best to get through all of them in the short amount of time that we do have. So the first question we have, Michael, I'm going to pop this one over to you, and both Lisa and Stacy, feel free to chime in. So Michael, the question is, what would you say to companies that are hesitant about really getting started owning their employer brand?
I guess I want to know why. I think that owning your employer brand is a requirement, right? If you don't own it, somebody else will. And Walmart's a great example of this. We didn't do a good job at telling our story in the past. That story was told for us. So all those good things that we do from a charity and women's empowerment and all those sustainability things were overlooked in the past. We've been doing it for a long time. So if you don't own your brand, you're letting somebody else tell your story.
Great, thank you. The next question, Stacy, I'm going to pop this one over to you because I think it's an interesting one. So if you have very limited or no budget to really get started building your employer brand, what are the best ways to start?
I will tell you this, every single client I've ever had, we've had zero budget ever, aside from the cost of the employees and our time, and they hired me, of course. But the beautiful thing is that blogging is free. Social is free. You can do video even if you don't have a budget. Everybody has an iPhone or a smartphone. You can do video for free. You can post content on Glassdoor or other social channels. You can get your employees sharing. All these things are really just a matter of time, effort, organization, having a strategy. So really the only budget I ever had is at Zappos. We had $150 and we bought 150 Nutty Buddies, and we had a meet and mix mingle event where we invited a bunch of local Vegas folks to come and eat ice cream with us. And that was the only budget I've ever had with any of my clients. So there's a lot you can do for free. You can set up a Facebook group. We did that at TripAdvisor. It was fabulous. It was a lot more impactful than just having a page because people came in and real employees talked to real candidates, talked to hiring managers, recruiters could chime in. Everybody was talking to everybody. The chairs were all in a circle, kind of thing. So there's a lot you can do with the channels that you have without any budget whatsoever. So definitely that sounds like a blog post waiting to happen. I should write a little blog post about all the ways you can do great stuff with no budget.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Stacy. I'm
all about free.
The next question, would love everyone's perspective, but I'm going to pop it over to Lisa first. So please, Stacy and Michael, feel free to chime in afterwards. So Lisa, who should be responsible for owning employer branding at a company?
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad we got this question. So it's funny, I was just on the road at the Glassdoor Best Places to Work Roadshow where we had panelists all from companies that had been deemed best places to work by Glassdoor in our list that we put out every year. And we got this question in all 3 cities that I was moderating this panel in because people are really serious about it. And these leaders from these organizations that have really mastered the employer brand all have the same answer. And it's very easy. It's everyone. So no problem, just harness every single member of your team and make sure they feel compelled to talk about your employer brand. No, it's not that easy. But at the end of the day, I mean, these were people from different departments within the organization. We had heads of marketing, heads of HR. We even had a general counsel. And those people all had the same message that you can't own your brand alone. And if it is a solo endeavor and something that you're trying to tackle as a one-woman show or one-man show, you'll find that you are unsuccessful because the power of your employer brand, as we've said, comes from the voice of the collective. So if you are in the position to push that forward, it's your responsibility to empower as many members of your team as possible and your employees and your entire workforce to make them the brand ambassadors. So they end up doing the work of showcasing what it's really like to work at your organization. And it's your job to foster that and cultivate that and work with teams like HR, marketing, and folks who are involved in your voice, your communication, and it's really, really critical to have the buy-in of senior leadership as well, so your C-suite of executives who can really verify that this is okay and this is encouraged. Stacy or Michael, anything to add?
I completely concur. I'm just going to say here, here.
Me too.
All right. Well, with that, I think that's a great note to end on, and we are at the top of the hour. So I apologize if we didn't get to your questions. We will do our best to follow up with you after the webinar. But I did want to give a special thank you once again to everyone for joining us today. I know it's not easy to take an hour out of your day, so thanks for taking the time to tune in. And then again, special thank you to Michael, Stacy, and Lisa for taking your time to share all of your great thoughts and advice with our audience and all of us today. So with that, we will let you all go, and we will catch you next time. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.